The lights dimmed, the camera zoomed in, and the auditorium fell into an expectant silence. A young boy, barefoot and in clothes that seemed 2 sizes too big, walked slowly onto the stage. His shoulders were hunched as though the weight of the world rested on them, and his eyes avoided the glare of the judges, staring instead at the microphone in front of him. The murmurs in the crowd revealed what everyone was thinking: he didn't look like the kind of contestant who would dazzle them. And yet, the moment he opened his mouth to speak, something changed. "My name is Daniel," he said softly. I've been living on the streets since last year. Music has been my only way to survive." His voice cracked on the last word, and the audience leaned in closer. The judges exchanged glances, unsure of what to expect. Then the piano track began to play the opening notes of Let It Be. Daniel closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and sang. The first note was pure, trembling yet strong, like a voice that carried not just melody but years of pain and longing. The audience stilled. The judges froze. It was as though the world outside that stage had disappeared, and all that remained was Daniel and the song that poured out of his soul. Every word felt heavy with meaning. When he sang, "When I find myself in times of trouble," it wasn't just a lyric, it was his life. The audience could see the trouble etched into his face, hear it in the strain of his voice, and yet feel the hope that shimmered between the notes. By the time he reached the chorus, many in the crowd were wiping tears from their eyes. Daniel's journey to that stage hadn't been easy. His father had left when he was little, and his mother battled illness for years before passing away. With no family willing to take him in, he found himself sleeping in shelters, sometimes even on cold sidewalks. Nights were long, filled with hunger and fear, but he discovered that singing on street corners brought him a few coins, and more importantly, a sense of belonging. Strangers would stop, listen, and smile, even if just for a moment. Music was the only thing keeping his spirit alive. But standing on that stage was something he never imagined possible. He almost didn't audition, convinced no one would take a boy like him seriously. Yet, someone at a shelter encouraged him to try, and with borrowed clothes and shaking hands, he walked into that audition room. He was met with stares and whispers, but when the music started, judgment was replaced with awe. Back in the present, Daniel reached the most powerful part of the song, his voice soaring higher than anyone expected. The emotion was raw, unpolished, and utterly real. One of the judges, tears running down her cheeks, whispered to the others, "This is why we're here. This is what music is meant to do." And then it happened. As the final notes rang out, the auditorium erupted into cheers. The judges leapt to their feet, clapping with all their strength. One of them reached out with trembling hands and slammed the golden buzzer. In an instant, golden confetti rained down, covering the boy who had once been invisible to the world. Daniel fell to his knees, overwhelmed, tears streaming down his face. The roar of the crowd wrapped around him like the family he had always needed. For the first time in years, Daniel didn't feel like a homeless boy. He didn't feel forgotten. He felt seen, valued, and loved. The judges rushed onto the stage, one kneeling beside him, telling him, "You're not alone anymore. The world is going to know your name." That night marked a turning point. The boy who sang for survival on street corners was now singing for millions. But more than fame or applause, Daniel had found something greater: hope. His story reminded everyone watching that talent can rise from the darkest places, and that a voice, no matter how small, can carry enough power to change lives. The video of his performance spread across the internet within hours, reaching people across the globe. Messages flooded in, some from fans, others from families who opened their doors to help. Daniel's life was no longer about just surviving, it was about living, dreaming, and inspiring others. By the end of his journey, Daniel stood not just as a singer but as a symbol of resilience. His story proved that even when life seems unbearable, there is always light to be found in music, in hope, and in the kindness of others. As the confetti settled that unforgettable night, Daniel whispered the final words of his song, not into the microphone but into the silence of his heart, "Let it be." And from that day forward, he did.